listeners, I'm Brittany.
And I'm Hallie.
And welcome back to The Abyss. Don't forget to subscribe to us on whatever platform you listen to podcasts on. And if you would be so kind to give us a rating on Apple, that would really help us out. You can also follow us on Instagram. We have a Facebook page. We also have a Facebook group where we discuss some of the cases or share details. And you can always check out our website for show notes and some pictures from the cases that we talk about.
Today we're going to be talking about a case where a high school student disappears and nobody knows where she went. Friends are devastated. And once some of the horrific details of the case start coming out, it'll leave you with your jaw on the floor. This is the case of Skylar Neese.
So let's jump into the abyss. Skylar Neese was born February 10th, 1996. She was an only child, and she was described as very bubbly and outgoing. She was really kind. She was super smart. Worked really hard in school. She had a 4.0 GPA.
Basically an ideal student.
She grew up in Sheet Lake, West Virginia, and there she met Sheila Eddy in the second grade, and they really hit it off. They became super close. They were both from families where they were the only child, so they kind of bonded over that and sort of became the sisters that they never had. They stayed really good friends throughout elementary school, middle school, and then around the start of high school, both of their families moved to Morgantown. They were starting in a new school in a new area, but they had each other, so they got even closer. At this new school, they met Rachel Schoaf. She was also an only child, so she sort of fit into Sheila and Skylar's little group, and they all became really close, and they were kind of like the Three Musketeers. During high school, the three of them started getting a little bit more rebellious. They were sneaking out, drinking, smoking, things a lot of high school kids do, but they were really pushing the limits and influencing each other to maybe make some questionable decisions. They really valued their friendship, though, so even though parents and other people had some concerns about them being friends and the influence they had over each other, they were determined to stay friends through that. So during this time, social media was really starting to take over. A lot of companies like Twitter and Facebook and YouTube were getting their start, maybe a few years old, and a lot of teenagers, especially teenage girls, really flocked to social media. And these girls were no different. They were all obsessed with their social media, posting multiple times a day on Twitter and Facebook. And it was really a window into what they were feeling and doing and thinking, like a public diary. So as sometimes happens with teenage girls, the trio dynamic started changing a little bit. And even though Sheila and Skylar had kind of started out as the best friends and then Rachel came in, Sheila and Rachel started getting a lot closer, and they would sort of push Skylar out of the group sometimes. Sometimes they wore matching outfits and didn't include Skylar. They were hanging out a lot without her. Both Sheila and Rachel were sort of maturing, moving on with their adolescence, and both girls became sexually active with their boyfriends, and Skylar didn't have a boyfriend, so she sometimes felt like she was the little sister tagging along with these two. And even though the matching outfits and hanging out without her might not seem like a huge deal, for her it was really devastating, and she felt like she was losing her best friend. It really took a toll on her. And Rachel and Sheila didn't really acknowledge the strain that it was taking on Skylar. They just seemed to be more focused on their own friendship and themselves and their own lives, and they just sort of were leaving Skylar behind, which happens with friends. So it really seemed like things were taking a turn. Maybe their friendship was over, people grow apart. Maybe this was just the natural end of their friendship. So through all this, Skylar really took to Twitter. She felt like she didn't have her friends to confide in anymore, so she used this outlet to get out her thoughts and feelings and maybe even take a jab or two. Some of her tweets became really passive-aggressive and even vulgar, seemingly towards Rachel and Sheila. And she said things like, "You're a two-faced bitch and obviously fucking stupid if you thought I wouldn't find out." And a girl, a bitch, a bitch. She also made some really vague tweets like, "Just know I know." She even made pretty direct remarks about the situation. She said things like, "Too bad my friends are having fun without me," and "Sick of being at fucking home. Thanks, quote unquote, friends. Love hanging out with you all too." So she was making pretty direct remarks about the situation with Sheila and Rachel, and you can tell how much it was weighing on her and hurting her, and how she felt like Twitter was kind of her only outlet.
Skylar Neese was working at a Wendy's in 2012, and she came home really late one night from work. She had posted 2 tweets that night saying, quote, "You doing shit like that is why I will never completely trust you," end quote. She also posted, quote, "All I do is hope," end quote. So she was kind of going back and forth. Seemed like she was really mad, but she was also trying to be hopeful. She was trying to keep optimistic attitude, but she just couldn't get over the fact that she was upset. The next morning, Skylar's father saw that Skylar's bedroom door was still closed, assumed that she was still asleep in bed, and didn't really think anything of it. She was just sleeping in. But he finally thought, it's kind of weird she's still asleep after this long. So he went to check on her and found that Skylar was nowhere to be seen in her room. Her window was open, and there was a bench below it as if she had, snuck out, jumped down on the bench, and hadn't come back home. Her parents knew she was a good student, knew she was a responsible 16-year-old girl, and they didn't panic. Maybe she's with someone. They called Sheila, but Sheila had said she hadn't seen Skylar, and they knew that Skylar was supposed to work that day. So they figured they would just wait until Skylar was supposed to be at work, call the work, and make sure she got there okay. When it was time, they called, and she hadn't shown up. She was never late for work. She never missed work. So this really struck hard for her parents, and that was when they thought something is really wrong. They contacted the police and reported Skylar Neese missing. At the time, they would only issue an Amber Alert if you met 4 criteria. And the criteria were that a child is believed to be abducted, a child is under the age of 18, the child may be in danger of death or serious injury, or that there isn't enough information to indicate that the Amber Alert would actually be helpful. So since Skylar Neese didn't meet all of the criteria, the police started to talk to her friends and her family to see kind of what they knew, if they had seen her, if they had talked to her, things like that. So when they talked to Rachel and Sheila, they told them that they were with Skylar the night she went missing. They had picked her up at 11 p.m. after she snuck out of her apartment, and they drove around the city getting high on marijuana and then dropped her back off a little bit later before midnight. They said that they had stopped down the street a few ways so that way the parents wouldn't see her car or hear them, and that she could sneak back in without there being any problems. Whenever the police went back and checked the surveillance cameras in their apartment complex, they saw that Skylar was leaving in a car around 12:30 a.m. So it seems that after Sheila and Rachel had dropped her off, she was leaving with another person. The police immediately thought of this as a runaway. She was leaving on her own will, got into a car with someone, and thought that she had just up and left. There was a tip that was given into the police stating that she could be in North Carolina, but it turned out after they looked into the sighting that it wasn't actually her. The family and law enforcement made posters and announcements to try and get her to come home and try to find her. The parents, however, did not believe that she ran away. They saw that her contact case was still at the home, her hair straightener was there, and she always straightened her hair. She hated her natural hair, and it just didn't add up to them. It was hard on her friends as well. Rachel had to leave for a church camp pretty shortly after Skylar's disappearance, and it was really weighing on her. She was devastated. Sheila even went to read Skylar's diary and sobbed because she was so upset about her missing friend and so upset about what her friend was going through at the time. Sheila also was regretting the controversy between them and really was wanting her best friend back. The police started to steer away from a runaway situation, and they started thinking it more as an accident. There were theories going around that she may have overdosed at a party. The people at the party probably panicked and disposed of her bodies. That way they all wouldn't get in trouble for using drugs or drinking alcohol and going against law enforcement. So Sheila and Rachel were posting on Twitter as they usually did, but they were very upset, talking about how they missed their friend and how they wanted her to be found. Over winter break, the 2 girls even went to the extent of becoming homeschooled because of the stress of being in that environment and not having their friend.
On December 28th, 2012, all this stress came to a head for Rachel, and she pretty much had a nervous breakdown. Her mother called 911 for help and told them she could not control her daughter, that she was screaming and running through the neighborhood. And in the back of this call, you can hear Rachel's screaming, and her father was trying to control her and trying to get her out of the street while her mother begged the police to hurry. Once they got there, they assessed her, and she was committed to a local psychiatric hospital. And this was just another blow for Sheila. One of her best friends was missing, and now her other best friend was in a psychiatric hospital, and she tweeted that it was the worst night of her life and that she hoped that Rachel was okay. Rachel was discharged from the hospital on January 3rd, 2013, and instead of going home, she and her mother went straight to their attorney's office. And along with the attorney, they went to talk to the police. Ronnie Gascon, who was the lead investigator in the case and one of the officials that was in the room with Rachel, said, quote, "We were expecting her to say, yes, Skylar overdosed on heroin, but the first 3 words out of her mouth were, we stabbed her. The agent and I were speechless for a little bit. Then we were like, let's start over. Tell us exactly what happened. What do you mean you stabbed her?" End quote.
I have goosebumps just thinking about that.
Yeah, it totally shocked them because they had never even considered that. They were going on one assumption and they thought, oh, here it is. We're going to get confirmation that she overdosed on drugs or had too much alcohol or something like that.
Instead of an accident, it became a murder.
So Rachel kept on talking and the whole story really unfolded and everyone was absolutely shocked. Rachel said that she and Sheila were just becoming more agitated by Skylar. They didn't really want her around. And then one day Sheila jokingly mentioned that they should kill her. And they joked about it. And somewhere along the line, it became more of an official plan. And it lingered over the next year.
Which is crazy to me because even you and I have moments where we joke about taking a trip or making this podcast. And then it becomes reality so quick. We just decide, you know what, that's actually a great idea. So to think of it in a more sinister way just baffles me.
Yeah, the same sort of thought process can go so dark. Sheila and Rachel arranged to meet Skylar on the night of July 5th, 2012, and Skylar was super excited about it. She thought these were her sort of estranged friends, and they finally wanted to hang out with her. They were finally coming back around. This was her chance to sort of join the group again and be a part of her best friends' lives. But little did she know, Sheila and Rachel had actually concocted this really dark plan, and they were prepared. They brought a shovel, rope, bleach, and a change of clothes, and they put all of this in the trunk of Sheila's mother's car. They even taped kitchen knives under their clothes wrapped in cloth so it wouldn't cut them, but they would be concealed. So they really knew what their plan was.
This is the definition of premeditated murder.
So Skylar snuck out the way that she had done many times before and met up with her best friends, expecting it to just be a joyride. Maybe they would smoke some marijuana and just be the rebellious 16-year-olds that they were used to being. After picking Skylar up, they went from Morgantown to Brave, Pennsylvania, which is a sparsely populated area. And we actually have a map of the route that they took on our website, so be sure you check that out, and some screenshots of their tweets. So once they got to Brave, they parked and started smoking marijuana. And the 2 girls told Skylar that they forgot their lighters, and Neese offered to go grab them from the car. When she had her back turned, they removed the kitchen knives they had hidden, and they counted to 3 and then began stabbing her in the neck and the back. Skylar was asking why. Those were her last words as her friends were ending her life.
It's heartbreaking.
She wasn't going down without a fight, though. She tried to defend herself and even cut Rachel's knee. But with 2 girls, she was just easily overcome. She actually nearly escaped, but they stabbed her in the knee to prevent her from running again, which is just horrific. They tried to bury her, but the ground there was just too rocky for them to dig in, so they just placed her near a tree and covered her up with wood and rocks and leaves and things like that. And then the 2 girls went into the nearby river to clean off and change their clothes. They got rid of the bloody clothes and then headed back to Morgantown. Rachel stated that Sheila had made her do it, that she didn't really have a choice, even though you always have a choice in that kind of situation.
Yeah.
Peer pressure can be strong, but there's so many times that Rachel could have just stepped up and ended this.
Over the course of a year.
Rachel wanted to work out a deal with the police. That's why she was telling them the full story and cooperating with anything that they ask of her. And she ended up wearing a wire to try to get Sheila to incriminate herself. This ended up not working. Sheila didn't say anything incriminating. Oddly enough, shortly after the confession, Rachel and her mother went on vacation. They still wanted Rachel to help them and wrap up this case, so she was allowed to go, even though it might be seen as kind of weird.
A little peculiar.
Yeah, but that's how it went down.
The police had made notes during the investigation about the emotions of Sheila and Rachel. The nonverbal cues from Rachel were pretty obvious. She was playing with her hair a lot, avoided eye contact, she was clicking pins, the fidgety type of activities that we do when we're nervous or concentrating or excited. But overall, she seemed really antsy and really anxious. I think this probably could have been shaken off as she just lost her friend. She's got a lot going on in her brain, pretty nervous, but obviously we know that there was a little bit more to that. Sheila, on the other hand, seemed really void of emotions. She was almost sociopathic in a way. She was looking straight in the eye and spoke very clearly, very straightforward. She had great posture, and when her story would change, she would apologize and make excuses, and she seemed very confident in what she was saying. She even flirted with the police a little bit and would wear suggestive clothing. You can tell that she wasn't really fazed by anything that happened. She had a lot of sociopathic tendencies. Rachel and Sheila both had to take polygraphs, and when Rachel went to take hers, she panicked and jumped out of her dad's car and just ran. She was so nervous, and she ran straight to Sheila's mother. Sheila's mother then went to the police station to grab some of her daughter's belongings, and the police had asked her, hey, do you know where Rachel is? Like, she was supposed to be here for a polygraph. And she was like, yeah, Rachel's with me. Also, could you leave my daughter alone because you're making her life miserable? And the officer just responded by saying, good, because she's lying. Sheila then went in to take her polygraph. Even though she remained confident and answered questions so calmly during the interrogation, she did not pass. Even though we know that polygraphs can't always be accurate, it lined up more so with what Rachel was saying because of Sheila just not being truthful. The police finally determined that the car in the surveillance video from the apartment was a 2006 Toyota Camry, which happened to be the car that Sheila's mother owned. Which was very ironic because during the interrogation, they showed Sheila the video of this car picking up Skylar, and Sheila flat out said, I don't know whose car that is. Clearly, she knew it was her mother's car, and she knew that she was the one in the car. They also found more surveillance video based off of Rachel's story, where the girls ended up headed west when they had initially stated they were heading east. They supported this with the pings off of the two girls' phones that happened around Blacksville at 4 a.m. on July 6th. So this just proved they weren't where they had initially stated. To wrap it all together with a beautiful bow, they found Skylar Neese's blood on Sheila's mother's car. It was confirmed through DNA matching, and they were able to arrest Sheila Eddy in a Cracker Barrel parking lot. The way she was arrested was just kind of something that we found humorous in a way, where Sheila was asking, don't put me in prison with any mean people, and she didn't want anybody to see her in the back of a police car. She was also concerned about the way she was looking. It just seems very like
she was focusing on herself and how it was going to affect her, and pitting herself instead of feeling any guilt or fear about what she had done and the hurt she had caused. And if you go onto our website, you can see the two girls' mugshots, and Sheila's mugshot just is so disgusting. She has a big smile on her face. She looks very smug.
She's got her head tilted, her chin tilted up, which just shows the sign of arrogance and confidence.
Yeah.
And
it's like she's posing
for
a model photo shoot and not a mugshot for killing her best friend.
It's absolutely disgusting and horrific. Ronnie Gascon, he said, quote, "We never encountered anything that led us to believe that these two girls conspired with one another to commit premeditated murder." He also said, quote, "We asked Rachel, why did you guys kill Skylar? And her only answer to that was, we just didn't like her," end quote. It reminds me a lot of the movie Strangers, where they ask, why us? Why are you attacking us? And the girl just says, because you were home. It's like there's no real rhyme or reason, not a good motive.
Yeah, it's just, we didn't like her. In high school, there's cliques and there's bullies and there's a lot of people that just don't like each other, but that's no reason to take it this far.
Exactly. And then that brings in the question of motive. Was there a greater motive than just that they didn't like her? And there were mentions of Rachel and Sheila's sexual relationship together, saying that Skylar had seen them two making out or doing things together, and which probably weighed a lot on Skylar, made her really uncomfortable, and probably makes a more reasonable motive for why the girls might have attacked Skylar the way they did. The police took Rachel out to where she said that they dumped Skylar Neese's body, but They couldn't find it. She couldn't remember the exact location, so they ended up leaving. But on January 16th, 2013, the investigators went back out to the site and they began another search for Skylar Neese's body. They found her remains about 40 feet from the road. She was covered with branches and rocks. Nature had taken its toll a little bit on her body and done some work. She was missing her head, but it was later found, and her phone was found as well. It was extreme overkill, more so than they probably would have imagined just by saying, we stabbed her. But it was found that she was stabbed more than 50 times.
Skylar wasn't the only one that took to Twitter to voice her thoughts and feelings. Sheila would post several times a day, and sadly, looking back over her tweets, you could really see the subtle ways that this all played out on her Twitter. She said things like, quote, "love having the upper hand," end quote, "ain't no rest for the wicked," end quote. She also said, quote, "it's pretty awesome. I can block someone from my thoughts completely as if they never existed," end quote.
More of those sociopathic tendencies we talked about.
And maybe the most creepy tweet of all time, quote, "we really did go on 3," end quote.
This one just gives me chills. And to think that so many of her friends saw this post and didn't really know what it meant. And to think that that was basically a confession saying we really did go on 3. We really did kill her on the count of 3.
Yeah.
Look at me. I got goosebumps.
And it just shows you on social media how things can sort of be portrayed one thing, but there's so much more going on beneath the surface. We have these tweets and a bunch more by Sheila on our website, so if you want to read more of her kind of thoughts and state of mind, head to our website and check that out.
They're really chilling, and it's all gathered on our website instead of, digging through the Google search stuff to try to find it, so go check it out.
She even has sort of a tribute post with pictures of her and Skylar, and it says, quote, "rest easy, Skylar. You'll always be my best friend. I miss you more than you could ever know," end quote. So she was playing it up sometimes to really come across as the bereaved best friend of this missing girl, but she could sort of turn that off and on at will and just sort of turn off her emotion about the whole situation when it served her. So it's super eerie.
Yeah, it's more of just a ruse to get attention in a way that makes her look innocent.
Some students at the girls' school said that they had overheard the two girls talking in school about the murder and how to get rid of bodies, but they all just assumed they were joking, so no one really thought anything of it, no one reported it, no one told the teacher or anything.
Which is just so sad because it could have been prevented. Always report things. You never know what's serious, what's not. You never know what life you could save just by taking that step, because if it's nothing, then it's nothing. Great, that's okay. But if it's something, at least you know you did your part to help.
And especially for kids in school, sometimes it can be kind of hard because a lot of kids have kind of dark humor and say things that could be construed one way or the other. But so many of these crimes perpetrated by children, they talk about it, they joke about it, they tell other people, maybe even brag about it. And so many times these statements are just taken as nothing but a joke and not taken seriously. But in this case, it really could have saved Skylar's life if someone had just told a teacher or a parent and they had talked, to the girls about it. Maybe they would have reconsidered, or Skylar could have been pulled from that situation, but we'll never know.
Yeah, and that's something that's really interesting about this case is that both of us are in our 20s, and being 16 was not that long ago. Knowing the peer pressures of being a teenager in high school, it's hard, and things that seem so extreme are really just minor, and you take them out of proportion so easily.
Yeah, and I think that's why this case sort of hit a little bit differently for us, because we talk a lot about serial killers or older men, and we can't really get into that mindset. But we've been teenage girls, we've been in high school, we've had the peer pressure and the bullies and the cliques. So we really can put ourselves in the shoes of Skylar and how she must have been feeling. Most of us have had friends drift apart or had your heart broken in high school, and you would never think that it would end up like this.
Exactly. And you think about the friends you had in high school, and I would never have assumed that one of them would have plotted to murder me. It just seems so unfathomable.
Yeah, I remember in middle school, I had sort of a group of best friends in the neighborhood, and the little girl next door was one of my best friends, or so I thought. And later it came out that she had been telling the whole school lies about me because she didn't want other people to want to be my friend, and I had no idea to my face she was my friend and everything. I can't imagine escalating that to murder. Sheila Eddy pled guilty to first-degree murder, and Rachel Shove pled guilty to second-degree murder because she had helped. So she had a lesser charge. In January of 2014, Shove got 30 years in prison with the possibility of parole at 10 years, which would be 2024, which is coming up. Eddy got life in prison with the possibility of parole in 15 years. Prosecutor Marcia Ashdown said, quote, Rachel Shove described the scene as having lots of blood. She estimated that Skylar was stabbed 10 times before she died, and she explained that during the attack, Skylar's neck made weird sounds, and they both continued to stab her until those noises stopped. Surely for this oh-so-adult crime of cold-blooded, planned, premeditated murder, there is no proper sentence other than an adult sentence, end quote. In court, Sheila was very stoic. She didn't show much emotion. The only time she really showed emotion was when she was giving her own statement, and she was all tearful but not really apologetic. Rachel, on the other hand, broke down a lot during the trial, and in her final statement to the court, she said, quote, I am so sorry. I don't know if there's a proper way to make this apology because there are not even words to describe the guilt and remorse that I feel each day for what I've done. The person that did that was not the real me, not the person I am, not what I'm made of, and not what I believe in. I don't think I ever thought this would ever happen. I became scared and caught up in something that I did not want to do. I never realized the gravity of my actions and how many people I have hurt. I hurt the Neese family and those who love Skylar. I hurt my parents and shamed my family. I hurt my teachers and those who believed in me. And I hurt my Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. May God bring eternal peace to Skylar and the entire Neese family, and I pray each day for forgiveness, end quote. And Skylar's father's final statement was, take her apologies and everything else and sit on them because that's about all they're worth, end quote. In March of 2016, Skylar Neese's parents sued Sheila and Rachel's parents for negligent supervision and entrustment of their children, basically saying they were careless in the guidance of their daughters, and that's what led to this crime. It was ruled that the parents of the murderers are not entitled to insurance coverage for the actions of their daughters. Skylar's family and friends made a memorial, which you can see on our website, and Dave Neese stated, quote, something horrible happened here, but I wanted to take the horrible thing that happened here and try to turn it into something good, a place that people can come and remember Skylar and remember the good little girl that she was and not the beast that they treated her like, end quote. Skylar's parents really pushed for the laws to be changed regarding Amber Alerts. So they created Skylars Law, which made an adjustment to those 4 criteria for an Amber Alert that we mentioned earlier, and made it so any child can be reported missing and in danger and have an immediate announcement no matter if the child is believed to be kidnapped or not. So this case really shows the importance of monitoring your children, talking to them, finding out what's happening in their lives, maybe looking at their social media every once in a while, and really trying to prevent things like this from happening.
Especially if they're in the younger age range of middle school through high school, you know, things really go down there, things really happen, and it's an important time to keep that tab on your kids. There's a book out about this Skylar Neese case called Pretty Little Killers, and we'll put a link up for it on our website so you can go check it out if you want to read more about the case, learn some more details about what really went down. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. In 2 weeks, we'll have our next episode up, so make sure to keep track on social media or put it on your calendars so that way you can tune in and listen. It'll be a very interesting case, and we love to hear your feedback. We love your support. Go ahead and give us that 5-star rating. Follow us on Instagram and Facebook, Twitter, YouTube. We've got a bunch of social media out there, and it's a good way to reach out to you because it'll pop up on your news feed and give you that reminder when it's time for a new episode to come up. Thank you guys again for listening, for diving into the abyss with us this week, and we hope that you tune in on the next episode.
Bye!
Murder cravings.
You're craving
Are you cravings for murder? You said you didn't have any popsicles.
No, I was just like looking over there, and then I was gonna talk to you about those mushrooms, and I was like, it's time for podcast. And my brain was like, mushrooms.
Milk on the go,
Milk on
as
the
they say.
I'm gonna milk. Excuse me, I need my milk.
Excuse me, calcium for the day. And you could even throw in definitely, since they were both only childs.
Say it, sing it. Two.
He said, I don't like it. Cut.
Many times. From Morgantown to Brave, Pennsylvania, which is a rural.
I can't. To Brain, Pennsylvania, where pops up on your nudes feed.